Welcome back to the Adventures of a Disney Dad podcast. We're diving into today one of the most controversial parts of Disney culture, the term Disney adults. We're sitting down with AJ Wolfe, the founder of Disney Food Blog, the owner of AllEars, two of the biggest sites in the Disney community, to talk to her about her brand new book, Disney Adults, which I've been fortunate enough to get a preview copy and read. And it is a very fun read. And we're going to talk about what it really means to be a part of the Disney fandom. AJ has built the biggest media company in the space. It dominates the blog and YouTube and social media landscape. I would call her the goddess of content creation because I really think that it starts there. And I mean that as the highest compliment. We'll dive into her new book. We'll talk to her about some of her Disney thoughts, her Disney planning thoughts, and how she built two of the biggest Disney platforms in the world. With that, AJ, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, Chip. Good to be here, guys.
Yeah, and to be clear from the upshot, the book is available for pre-order now. I will include links to get your pre-ordered copy in the show notes, and it is available August 5th. So it's right around the corner, AJ. Like, how are you feeling about this process?
I'm super stressed and crying a lot. No, I'm not actually crying. I'm just this is all new to me, so I'm just trying to figure it all out and get this out to as many people as possible. I think there's so much in this book that people don't expect to be in here. There's so much in this book I didn't expect to be in here, and so whatever you think it is, it's more.
And like, there's not a better way to describe this book. We talked a little bit about it before the show. The journey that I went on reading this book, as I would admit, I'm a Disney adult, and I think every Disney adult has their own experience in the fandom and how they came into Disney and going on that journey. But like, some of the statistics and the studies and the details were not things that I expected to going into it. Is really digging into the how and the why we kind of feel the way that we feel about this place. I thought it's just really interesting is the easiest way to put it. And some of the comparisons, I think, are some of the things that I really want to talk about on the show and dive into a little bit deeper. Obviously, with no spoilers, we want you to go and read the book, but it is absolutely worth the journey, and you should definitely check it out. Before we really dig deep into the book, AJ, like, when I reached out to like our listeners and on social media and asked people what questions they wanted to ask you, it was 99% of the people wanted the Disney food blog, AJ Wolfe, AllEars origin story. And so and you talk a little bit about it in the book. So I'd love to hear a little bit as to how you got started in the early days of both this fandom and how that took you into your DFB journey.
Yeah, well, I've been a Disney adult for 26, 27 years now. And I, of course, started, it's on my hat. I, of course, started, I loved Disney because my parents took me when I was little. You know, we would go stay in a condo at Clearwater Beach or whatever for like maybe every third or fourth spring break. And they would take us to Disney for a rope drop to fireworks day. And back then it was the 80s, so there were only two parks. And so that was my origin story for Disney. I really bonded with my dad over the Epcot Center background music. That just became our thing. We would listen to it all the time. But then when I got into like grad school, I was living in New Hampshire. It was very cold. It was very snowy. And I was like, oh God, I got to get out of here. So that's when I started to go to Disney World. It was an escape. It was something different. It was something predictable. And then when I moved to New York City, started working in New York, Disney World was just the polar opposite of New York City. And I was not feeling very, comfortable in my space there in New York. And so Disney World became my escape. That's when I think turned into a bona fide Disney adult. I mean, I was every single minute of my day that I wasn't working was focused on Disney, on reading guidebooks, on reading trip reports, figuring out when I could get there again, when I would have enough PTO. So yeah, that was kind of it for me. And it is parks. I am a parks Disney adult, 1,000%. Some people are merchandise Disney adults, some people are movie Disney adults. I am a parks Disney adult all the way.
And it's so that's so relatable too, because like I'm not a popcorn bucket guy. I'm not, none of that stuff. The pin. I've started to buy a few pins lately,
Yeah.
and Chip and I have talked about that a little bit. But I'm a parks guy, so
Yeah.
like, and there almost is like a subsection of how you could categorize
You
your
can.
fandom.
Oh, you
Yeah,
totally can. And I realized, man, I didn't answer your question. So Disney. So sorry. They
we
want
were
the
gonna get
origin.
there. I was gonna
You
get you
want the
back to it.
origin
Oh yeah.
story of DFB? So in my mid 20s, I met my husband. We met online, and he's not a Disney fan. He doesn't care. But we wanted to do something together because I was living in New York City. He was living in Dallas, and so we started websites because he's a software developer. I know a lot about Disney, and I was addicted to it. So we started some Disney websites. Our first one was called WDW for Grownups, which is still around, still exists. But then Disney Food Blog came around in 2009, mostly because I wanted it to exist and nobody was deep diving into food. And I was like, okay, Disney doesn't post their menus online at that time. They didn't put pictures of their food. You knew nothing about these restaurants except what they were named.
They had a
You,
book, right? They had a little
yeah,
book that you could see what restaurants they had. I
there
remember
was a
that.
little there was the little burn bomb book, but even that was like two sentences. And I'm like, they want me to go to spend $100 plus in these restaurants and I don't even know anything about them. And so that's when I started Disney Food Blog. I was like, you guys, we gotta talk about this. Even back then there was a stigma. If you cared about restaurants in Disney World, people thought you were weird. And I'm like, if you look at the about page on Disney Food Blog, it even says, be honest, you like restaurants in Disney World, as though it's something weird. And that was written in 2009 when it was. So that's
I
kind of
still feel
how.
like people think it's weird too.
Why?
I
Yeah, they
I
just
have a
want to talk
friend.
about rides.
I have a friend that he goes his parents are DVC members and he's a chef.
Yeah.
Anytime I talk about Disney restaurants being good, he's like, in the context of Disney, like as if
There's a
they can't
Michelin
just be
star.
good.
They have the
Right,
Michelin
well, right.
star.
And that's like, I think that it's still a thing,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
It's so weird. Anyway, that's how DFB started. Was we launched that, and then we purchased AllEars from Deb Wills, the icon of Disney sites. In about 2016, she was ready to sell it, and she came to us and asked if we wanted to purchase it. So because we've been good friends with her for a long time, so that's how we got AllEars in the mix. But yeah, that's basically the origin story.
Oh, that's fun. When it comes to like where it is now,
Hmm.
I'm sure at the time in 2009 you couldn't predict how big it would be at this point. You run a massive multimedia company. What does your day look like? Are you still like in the trenches? Because I know you back then you were going, on day trips to Disney to get content yourself.
Oh
Now
my
you obviously have
gosh.
a massive team.
Yeah.
What does your role look like now in comparison to back then? And kind of like, are you still on? We obviously know that you do some of the YouTube videos and the voiceovers, but are you still in the trenches, or how do you feel about that?
I still am in the trenches because I think it's really important for me to have a full understanding of, you know, all the garbage you can run into when you're in Disney, and figuring out lightning lanes and figuring out, okay, well, now I've booked my lightning lanes and that screws up my dining reservations. And how am I going to do this? And how do I actually find my room again at Port Orleans Riverside at night because everything looks the same and there's not enough lighting? Like all of that stuff. I am still experiencing, I'm still going, I'm still making mistakes when I'm there. But I would say at this point, my day to day looks more like, a CEO managing a company. So I'm on a lot of meetings, and I'm dreaming up new potential partnerships and strategies and things like that. So it's primarily, a CEO job. But I will also say that I'm a perfectionist. And so I'm still in the title generation meetings. I'm still I'm still watching the videos and nitpicking all of that. I'm still very much in the mix with social media. What are we gonna, from strategy to final approval, because I am such a perfectionist, which is probably not great behavior for a CEO, but it is what it is. And that's what I'm doing. So I'm in the middle of all of it, really. But thankfully, I'm not doing the entire Epcot Food and Wine Festival by myself the way that I used to, going to every single booth by myself. I think I was the first one to go to every single booth on day one, to the point that I was starting to hallucinate by the end because I was like so full and so hot and sweaty.
And that's why I kind of mentioned that you're like the god of content creation for Disney, because now the first day of Food and Wine is every single
All
influencer.
bloggers and influencers.
Yeah, they're all trying to follow your footsteps, so to speak. So to the extent that you hate it, you can just blame AJ, right?
Exactly. It's
No,
it is. It's funny that you say that though, Matt, because I do, we started this before social media existed. We started this before, I was in those restaurants with my giant DSLR, my Canon, taking pictures before anybody had smartphones. And getting really weird looks. It was just not a thing to take pictures of your food. And so there is an element of me kind of being there at the beginning. And so I do think a lot of it is my fault.
no, I mean that as a compliment, though.
Yeah,
In
I
all
know.
seriousness, from my perspective, like I think you've done an incredible service. So I do want to be clear about that. I mean that in the most positive way possible.
Still,
But
the first day of a
are the
festival
OG.
kind of sucks these days.
That's fair, but like in terms of like the originator of bringing information to this space,
Yeah.
you are that person, and I mean that in the highest regard.
Sure.
100%. Go ahead,
So,
Chip.
so do you ever? You're a grinder. Like everything you're saying, you sound like you're a grinder. You love
Oh
doing it.
yeah.
Do you ever miss those 24-hour trips that I've read online that you were staying up just working at a hotel and didn't even get a room, like type of thing? You miss that
Yeah,
at all?
I mean, do I miss them? No. Because I'm old now, Chip. I'm very old now. I don't miss that because again, like you said, that was an absolute grit based kind of thing. Is I was just like, no, we are going to do it the best. And it's very, very nice to have the support and help of the team. And so they will let me do whatever I want. They're like, go ahead, AJ, if you want to stay up all night and do this, you go ahead, but they're also there to be like, when I'm like, I'm tired, and they're like, okay, we got it, so they're very kind to me to let me do what I want and then throw in the towel when I need to. But I'm so glad that, and there are some days that I grind, there are some days that I can remember, Galactic Star Cruiser, when that dude opened, and we had, one day to finalize the YouTube video and all of the content we had. It was embargoed, and you would set your alarm for like 12 minutes to nap for 12 minutes just to be able to function and get up and continue the edit or continue the whatever. Same thing with like 50th anniversary of Disney World. That day was crazy. The opening of Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland. Those are when you're not sleeping. You are not going to sleep for several days. And again, it is literal 12-minute naps, just whenever you can. Do I miss it? No, but will I still do it? Yes, because it's what is demanded by the job.
And I think that in part that's what YouTube has become, right? And I feel like it almost demands you to be first, especially at the level that you guys are at. Like
Yeah.
being ready to go right as soon as you can is a big part of the space. And that's, I guess, good or bad, right? Like you get the benefit of it certainly, but I do think that there's that rush to be first that you have to feel to be successful, because that's the way the YouTube algorithm prioritizes things. That's the way it works, and I think it's kind of unfortunate, but
You have to balance making sure you can get quality content out quickly. And
mhm.
so there are some people who just want to be first and they don't care how good their content is. We want our content to be actually useful and valuable and long term. And so we might not be first. We're going to be close to first, but at the same time, we also, we've got people scheduled to work around the clock on when those things come out so that we can be as early as possible. But yeah, back in the day, that wasn't a thing. It wasn't a newsroom. We didn't work in a newsroom, in the early 2000s. Now we do. This is absolutely a 24-hour news cycle newsroom that we work in. That when we hire people, we tell them you're in a newsroom and it's, something could happen at 11 p.m. on Friday night and you're going to have to cover it.
And to that point of the way things have changed, do you think that if you had to start it all over in this day of the way content is made, that you could do it all again from zero? And to that end, have you ever considered doing another site? I know you guys don't do a ton of universal stuff, but has that itch ever come about where you're like, especially with your husband that's a software developer, like,
Mhm.
do you ever get the itch to want to do another one?
We are definitely expanding our coverage into a lot of travel coverage right now. So I think what we're doing, instead of starting a new thing from scratch, we are kind of building on what we already have. But we are going into some global travel. And you'll see a lot more of that coverage, and you will see some new brands pop up around our company with some more global travel stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen like you guys have sent a couple of especially the AllEars team members, I think have done some of the international parks and stuff, and they've done a great job bringing that to
Absolutely. Yep.
everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, which is a lot of fun. So let's talk a little bit about the book. Now that we know like where you got started, how did this transition into the idea of writing a book? Did someone come to you and kind of spark that interest, or did you have it on your own?
Well, I've always been a writer, so I've always wanted to do a book. But I wasn't at a point where I was getting an agent and pitching or anything. Simon and Schuster, my editor, came to me, and she's a huge Disney adult. And so we met at Nomad Lounge and had some drinks and talked about, okay, if you were going to do a book, what would you do? And
That's
Disney
just
adult.
such a Disney adult story.
I know. She's so great, and you'll see in the dedication in the book, it's I've got a tribute to her, and I'm like, I'll see you at Nomad, right in the book. But that's, she's like, I think that this book needs to be written. I think it's important right now, and it is absolutely important. Disney adults have gotten um, so much press, so much buzz in the past 5 years, really since COVID. And the fact that everybody thinks they know what a Disney adult is and they really don't have any idea, and there are extreme opinions about this subculture when people don't really have any data to back up those opinions except for viral TikTok content. So I was like, yeah, absolutely, let's dive into this. And I didn't know what it was going to be at the beginning because I knew I didn't want it to be a defense of Disney adults. I didn't want it to be, you guys are mean and we're awesome, because that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of reasons why Disney adults have the stereotypes that we have. So sort of digging into, everybody's talking about this subculture, but they don't know anything about us. So let's give them some information about who we are and maybe be able to um, own, I guess, the stereotypes that are there and why they're there, and dig into why we are the way we are.
It was so enlightening to me because I've never thought about it that way. And I do think that the last 5 years, I feel like it comes up like every 6 months. There's like a Barstool Sports viral TikTok just ripping on
Yeah.
the Disney community. And one of the comparisons that you make that I think really hit home for me and for Chip, because we played football in college, was this comparison to like, why is it okay to be a sports fan versus being a Disney fan? And, Star Wars fans and Trekkies don't get ripped on and made fun of the way that Disney adults do. why is it okay to make fun of one and not the other, or and vice versa? There's a great section in the book about that. And I guess my question for you is, why do you feel personally? Because I know what the book says, and you've got some great people that back it up as to, you know, why there may be those certain stereotypes. But on a personal level for you as the author, what was your opinion on why that is?
The biggest reason that stood out to me for why Disney adults or Disney as a hobby is maligned when other hobbies are not. Because it's not the money that's spent. There's plenty of money spent on other hobbies. It's not the time that's spent. There's plenty of time spent on other hobbies. It is the fact that people assume Disney is for kids. And so it's a weird thing for adults to be interested in something that's for kids, in the same way that it's weird if you collect My Little Ponies if you're an adult. It's a little bit strange if you're still building a bunch of Legos as a Disney
as
adult.
as I've got Legos in the background. To be fair, my AJ, my kids built those though, so okay. I'll defend myself there.
But see, the fact that you feel like you need to defend yourself, like that right there is the core of, I'm not going to say the problem. I think it's fine for people to
Sure.
be confused by that and be like, okay, we've always grown up knowing that Disney's for kids, that you take your kids there. It's the law that you have to take your kids there at least once, you know. So what's with these adults that keep going back and don't bring their kids, you know? And so I think that's the one thing that people can't get through or can't get over, to understand why this is a hobby when, you know, if you're a football fan, if you're a soccer fan, if you're super into like knitting, like that's okay, but going to Disney is not.
Yeah, and there's to the point that you just made about the Legos. Like, I feel like as Disney fans, we have a natural reaction to defend ourselves.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's just immediate. Like, you feel like you have to respond, and as much as you can say that you're confident and it doesn't bother you or whatever,
Yeah.
there's still a little bit of that. Like,
Right.
where it bothers you deep down, and you feel like you have to kind of defend your interests, which is just, it's sad in a way. But like, Chip, I know you'd agree. We deal with that from, you know, the crowd that we've naturally had been friends with for decades, being former athletes. It's like the way you get ripped on in a locker room culture type of way. You have to have thick skin a little bit about it, right? I
Well,
mean,
yeah, and one of the things that I excuse me, that I always tell everybody is I'm a large human being. I'm an offensive lineman that's 6'6". I'm not small. I couldn't, when I was in 8th grade, Matt, you remember going to Kings Island when we were in 8th grade with our middle school? I was told I was too tall for a ride at Kings
Mm,
Island in 8th grade. I went to Disney World as a junior and sat next to a fellow offensive lineman that went to Bowling Green with me on a roller coaster. It was Everest. We sat next to each other. I
yeah.
wasn't too tall there.
Yeah.
yeah.
People ask why I'm a Disney fan. It's because I can fit on the majority of the rides at Disney World. I don't get told I can't ride a ride because I'm huge.
Oh man, that's
Yeah,
very interesting.
but that comparison, you know, I think, you know, one of the things that really came through in the book to me, because you have a lot of influencer and fan stories in the book, which is one thing that I was not expecting, to kind of go through other people's journey. And you really start to realize that, like, everybody experiences that vitriol of being interested in Disney in a different way.
Yeah.
And you know, Chip and I think we get a lot of it coming from the Disney is feminine and kids, right? So how are two men who are about to have 10 kids combined
Mm-hmm.
interested in going to a place for kids and a place for women?
Yeah.
Is really like the stuff that we get. And, you know, women may get it from a completely different perspective. The LGBTQ community, as you mentioned in the book, gets it from a different perspective. So there's so many different things that go into it, and we all have like different ways of reacting to it. I think influencers as a whole are getting maligned online,
Yeah.
right? For like, how are you spending so much time going and looking at the newest merch, you know, every other day, or whatever the case may be? But, you know, to that point, which influencer and fan story stuck with you the most?
This is hard for me because they're all in the book because they all really resonated with me. Honestly, your story is sticking with me a lot because I did not talk to a heterosexual dude for this book, because it's just not something that I dug into, and I love this element of it. And I'm hearing this from several other folks that I'm talking to on podcasts, because a lot of you guys run podcasts, and I'm just like, oh my god, yeah, that friggin' sucks. And that's something that, next edition I'm gonna put you guys in. But I think definitely the one that stuck with me a lot was a girl named Julia, who was an above the knee amputee and decided to run. She was in a car accident and they had to amputate her leg. And she decided her whole family was going to go to Disney and run a 10K, run Disney race. And she's like, okay, I'll do that. And so she got a little blade and, talked about kind of her training for the race and her experience doing the race. And the thing that really resonated with me though about her story is that she likes to go to Disney because they don't make her take her leg off when she's there.
It
Which
made
sounds
it
a
made
lot
me
like
think
story, like this is
exactly.
one place, because you go to Universal and you see it says you have to remove prosthetics.
So when
And
I saw that in the book about Universal, it was so incredibly disappointing.
yeah,
And
it's
like,
only on a couple of rides, but you still do have to remove prosthetics for some of those because they don't want your arm flying off and hitting somebody. And I get that. I understand that there's, but Disney does not have. Disney somehow has created rides that's not required. And it's funny because, I had to fact check that, and I sent my reporters into the parks. I'm like, can you please go over to Tron and make sure that nobody has to take off their leg to ride this? But I was like, yeah, I mean, that is going to make somebody feel so strange and awkward to have to take a limb off to ride a ride. And what do you do with it? Do you put it in a locker? I don't know.
right.
And and to me it's just like, well, yeah, that's Disney's going to make you feel so much more accepted with that situation. And that really struck me because it's not something most of us think about.
Well, and it's interesting because of what we've been through in the last few years with the DAS program at Disney and Universal. Kind of, I think a lot of people wanted. They feel now that Universal does it better,
Mm,
which I think is kind of ironic because they're very similar programs. And my lawyer hat was going off because I'm thinking, well, there's safety issues and legal issues and yada yada yada. Like I can see, in certain rides how it could be justified. Ultimately, it came back to like what a horrible experience for
yeah,
somebody that has to feel that way.
yeah,
And it really kind of circles back to the Venn diagram of all the stories. In the middle, the commonality was feeling accepted
yeah,
and having somewhere you can go and feel loved and enjoy and not feel judged, which I think was really great.
yeah.
Um, when you sat down and you wrote, like, you finished the book, was there one thing that you really hoped people took away from it
Mhm.
as an author?
Absolutely. I again, I think people have extreme opinions about this group, even though they don't, and that's the case now politically. Everybody has extreme opinions about what they are not, and it can't actually be that extreme. We can't actually be that different. That's just not how humanity works. And
Sure.
so the concept of, I know that you think you know who we are. I know that you think you know Disney adults, but let me show you a really broad understanding of this group, and also niche down to some specific people, because that's also, I think, how you solve prejudice, is by actually getting to know the people that you don't understand or that are different from you. um,
Sure.
and so that to me is a big thing to take away from it, is that this is a much, much bigger community than you think. We have a lot more power than you think. I mean, you figure, like, I make cases in the book, that Disney adults are actually affecting the choices that Disney is making. And as this absolutely giant, you know, multimedia conglomerate who owns everything, the fact that this fandom before social media didn't really have a voice, now has a voice. And that's something that I think is very important for us to understand, both on the Disney adult level, but on the broader scale too, right? That social media has done so much to affect our world economically, politically, globally, in every other way. So these communities are extremely powerful, and we need to start paying attention to that. But also that, humans are humans. So Disney adults are sort of holding tight to something that makes them feel safe and comfortable. And also at the same time, trying to avoid things that are scary or fearful. And that's, anyone can see how they're doing that in their own life, whether that's through their own hobbies or whatever. So I guess the key here is, listen, we're all a lot more similar than we are different. And it's pretty easy to see that once you actually dig into it.
It's funny. Chip and I always talk like, I feel like the Barstool Sports guys of the world. I'm always like, I can fix you. Like, if you hate Disney, guys, come with me and Chip, and I promise you, you will have a good time, and you'll see it the way that we see it.
Well,
it's always that.
My husband's a Barstool Sports kind of guy, and it's like, that's, when I first took him to Disney World, I curated the trip for him, right? And
See,
I'm like,
I can fix you. I can
yeah,
fix you.
like, listen, you're not even gonna know you're at Disney.
Exactly. We'll get you some drinks, and we'll do it the right way.
Days.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great. We'll go play
Exactly.
golf. Yeah.
We're not going to do 9 hours waiting in lines, but I do think that, like, there is, in general, the people that tend to hate Disney the most are the people that went and had a really bad time because they didn't know what they were doing.
Yep.
And we talk about that on the podcast all the time, so I don't want to hammer it home, but like, there's usually a reason why ultimately they hate the parks or whatever. But to go to your point about the power, I thought that was really, really interesting, the impact that the community has. And I do think that the advent of social media has led to like a rift in the community of like originalists and purists versus people that are kind of newer to the parks.
Mm-hmm.
And this Rivers of America stuff has shown that divide more than anything. And I guess my question for you is, how do you see Disney's changes to the parks, to the increase in prices, kind of a lot of the stuff that they've been doing lately, impacting the loyalty of this subset of the culture?
So I get on my soapbox a little bit in the book about this, because I'm just like, guys, if Disney doesn't evolve, if Disney doesn't change, if Disney doesn't keep up with, business practices, Disney doesn't exist anymore. Disney ceases. And so it's fine to be nostalgic about what Disney was like when you were a kid. And guess what? It's different for everybody. So the people who are, very upset about Rivers of America, there are other people who are very upset about about a change that was made, 15 years later or whatever. It's just, it depends on your Disney. When you fell in love with it, you want it to be that way. And it's completely different to everybody else's Disney. So I think the ranting and raving about change, you can't do that. Disney has to evolve, or else it dies. And so, but in terms of, loyalty to it, I Disney doesn't care. Like, okay, see ya, because we're going to bring other people in, right? We're not having any trouble selling tickets. And so I think that's the thing. Like, you can whine and complain all you want, but Disney's like, yeah, you'll get over it, because you know what?
I feel like nobody in our community knows that better than you do, because you actually have a line of communication on a corporate level. But I guess, so for Chip and I, we have our own things, right? Like, I could not care less. And this is to your point. I could care less about Rivers of America, honestly. But if they got rid of the people mover, I would be like with my pitchfork out.
You would riot.
Yeah. So what is your thing that you would riot if they took away at Disney?
Listen, Matt,
there has to be one. You can't fold on this.
I have gnashed my teeth, and so many times that I'm just, it's like, oh man, it's like when you're a parent and your kid just like does it again, and you're like, forget it. I give up.
But what is, or maybe it's one that they already took away. I'm not going to let you fold on this one. What would
Oh
be the
man,
one thing, either still in the parks or like in the past,
I am
that really bothers you?
I am very nervous about Spaceship Earth and changing Spaceship Earth. Spaceship Earth is, that is my core just comfort ride, and People Mover is my core comfort ride as well. If they ever take that
Yes.
away, I'm gonna die. Because I am the president of the unofficial People Mover fan club. I don't know if you know that.
I'm
But
going to run against you in that next election, but that's okay.
we'll see, Matt. We'll see what happens. But I absolutely love the rides that everyone else just rides when they can't ride anything else. So like Living with the Land, People Mover, and Spaceship Earth, which at this point is a meme for weird old Disney fans. But I love those. But at this point, I'm even trying to think of a food that I would be mad if they took away. I mean, we were upset when they messed with the waffles at Sleepy Hollow. Luckily, we brought them back. I shouldn't say we. Sure, it wasn't me, but
I'm sure that was a part of it,
they're
though.
back.
Like,
And stuff like little things like that. But usually, I kind of feel like I'm just tired now, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, there goes that. Enjoy it while you have it. But yeah, I think Spaceship Earth, People Mover, those are my core. I would just ride those and nothing else. I'd go on Guardians a couple of times a year, and then everything else just can be these two.
I literally was down Sunday for Starlight for 24 hours, and I rode the People Mover twice, and I rode Tron, and that was it.
That's it.
And the only reason why I rode Tron is because it was shockingly a 20-minute wait. So I was like, I can't not ride Tron.
Right. It's a requirement. Yes. No, I totally understand. Yeah.
Now, I want to. What's your resort? What's your favorite resort?
So because I don't live in Orlando, because I live in Dallas, and so that's another thing that I think helps out a lot with our content is that I'm still very much a travel to Orlando and fit as much in as you can. It's not a situation where I live there and I can go whenever I want. But when I go, I stay in whatever resort is going to give me the easiest access to get places the quickest for what I need to do on that trip. So usually it's going to be like an Epcot resort, like a beach club or a Swan and Dolphin or something like that, so that I can get to two parks very quickly and all the Skyliner resorts. And like, it gives me, I have to travel as little as possible to get places. Yeah. So that's usually what I will. And also I can usually get a good annual pass holder discount at those resorts. Whereas, I'm certainly not going to stay at like, Island Tower at Polynesian, because it's going to cost me $700 even with a discount. So, yeah, that's usually where I end up.
There was a question that was asked of Bob Iger the other day that I thought was really interesting, and I want to start asking a lot of our guests. And I think it's even more fitting for you because you are in that kind of CEO role that's seen a lot of this planning for a really long time. And he was asked and you may have heard this, I'm not sure, but it was about Disneyland. If you had one private hour in Magic Kingdom with a family going for the first time, with no other guests in the park, but everything is open, what would you do with them in that hour at Magic Kingdom?
At Magic Kingdom?
At Magic Kingdom. He was asked about Disneyland, and I think it's more for a Disney World person. I think for Magic Kingdom for a first timer is like where you'd want to spend.
You have to. It's a requirement. Yeah. I would probably go to Cinderella's Royal Table for breakfast. So they can, because I'm a completionist and I want to see inside everything that I can. I and if there's a restaurant in there, if I can go in the castle, I want to go in the castle. So I'd probably do Cinderella's Royal Table for breakfast. Then I would probably do I've got 1 hour.
1 hour.
Oh crap, then I can't go to Cinderella's Royal Table for breakfast.
We'll say that was at the beginning. We'll include that as like a quick meal. You still got time
before we start. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I would probably do Pirates of the Caribbean, Haunted Mansion, People Mover. I think we could fit all those in an hour. Maybe Jungle Cruise. I think that would be my. I honestly, I wouldn't even forget Tiana's, forget Tron. I don't care. You're going to go on the classics. You're going to go on the ones they brought over from Disneyland.
Yeah. I honestly, I think it's a harder question to answer, especially for Disney adults, than it is for for just about anything else? Like, I think that that's a difficult question. And I
Yeah.
thought Bob Iger, when he was asked about it at Disneyland, kind of avoided it a little bit. He was like,
Well, he
I, you
has
know, I,
to. He can't.
right.
He can't do
I,
it.
I get it, but I think that like for guests of our show, we used to do a Mount Rushmore, right? So if you had to pick 4 things that you would
Yeah.
include on Mount Rushmore from Walt Disney World, but I think that this is a more intriguing question because it does get a little bit deeper onto what you love and what you would recommend to other people, and so I think it's fun
I
from
think
that
so too. I
perspective.
love it. I love that question. I think you should do that for all the parks. That's great.
I think it's something that we're gonna keep for sure. The one of the most common other listener questions that we got that I have to ask you because of your expertise in the food space is what would you say is the most overrated Disney restaurant and what do you think is the most underrated Disney
Mm,
restaurant? Because that's what people planning these vacations they want to know. Where should I not go? Where should I
mhm,
avoid? And
mhm.
where do I really need to go that other people maybe are not hyping up on the internet?
And what sucks is that this changes all the time because the menus change regularly, the chefs change regularly, the servers change regularly, and so you really can't go on what you read last year. You know what I mean? And you can't go on what's in the guidebook that doesn't get updated.
Uh-huh.
For 12 months, which is why I think DFB does what we do is we go to these restaurants multiple times a year. We're going to give you, here's what's changed, here's what's updated, here's the new menu. Um, Right now, I think Ohana is really on its way down. I'm getting email after email from people who are like, they're cutting corners, they're buying low quality meat. Lots of it's on its way down for sure, which is sad, and I hope they change that because it's such a joyful first night experience. Um, so Ohana's on its way down. I wouldn't prioritize it anymore. If you can fit it in, great, especially if you can get a fireworks view table, but I wouldn't prioritize it anymore. Something that I think is super underrated is Steakhouse 71.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Not a good atmosphere. I still contend that it looks like a, a a reused car dealership, like a like
I
I hate that restaurant. It was much worse when it was the Wave, when it was like burnt orange in there, but it's not a good atmosphere, but the food is excellent and the burger is so good there. So that one is really underrated. Skipper Canteen's pretty underrated. The food can be mediocre, but at least it's different. And if you are a Jungle Cruise fan, there's so much in there to look at, and it's so much fun. And I'm a big fan of a lot of Imagineering in a restaurant. I love that. So
yeah.
those are a couple of restaurants that I think are underrated for food quality and for immersiveness, respectively.
The bar at Steakhouse 71 is a better vibe, I
It's
think.
great. It's good.
I
It's
love the
very,
bar there.
at least it's not as blue as it used to be. It used to just have blue lighting, like you're like you're in a
Yeah.
European public restroom where they don't want you to like find your veins. But this is the bar's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels very sterile, like you're going to a doctor's office to me. But I do love the photos that they have in the hallway there,
Yeah.
going to the bar and the food. Like that burger is it's just so good.
It's
Chip
so
and I
good.
talk
And you
about it
know
all
what
the
else
time.
is a good burger if you guys haven't had it is over at Island Tower, the Wayfinder burger.
Wailulu.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wailulu has
Yes.
a great burger. I was expecting to be annoyed that people liked it as much as the Stack burger, but I was not. I loved it.
We've Chip and I have talked about that. Like I felt the exact same way. It's still like just below Steakhouse 71 to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is that volcano sauce is
So
fantastic.
good.
It's
I
so
know.
good. It's
I
so
love
good.
a spicy aioli. It's just
Um, but
amazing.
that's gonna wrap it up. Make sure you get the book, pre-order it. Disney Adults by AJ Wolfe. It is going to be a link to get a pre-order is going to be in the description. Best of luck, AJ. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you had fun
Yeah,
chatting
this was
Disney with
awesome.
us.
Thanks,
We really
guys, and
appreciate
thanks
it.
for opening my eyes
Yeah.
to an even another maligned part of our community that we need to start talking about.
I don't want to feel like too maligned, but it's definitely everybody has their own experience for sure.